Hello, Pauper players, jank lovers, league grinders, and all other Magic the Gathering fans. I hope your Ravnica Allegiance pre-releases were spectacular. Now that we have access to RNA on Magic Online, it's time for us to talk about which commons from this set we think will make an addendum to the Pauper format this season. Guilds of Ravnica just brought us Hypothesizzle and Devious Cover-up, proving that Wizards is mindful of Pauper players when they're printing standard legal sets. Ravnica Allegiance looks to be very powerful as well. Even just looking over the full spoiler, I can already tell that RNA is bringing us some cards that are going to be competitive in the Pauper format, but also some cards that will just be really interesting brew-arounds. Before I get into the cards that I think will adapt our Pauper decks this season, I just want to let you know that you can like the video or subscribe to the channel down below. I'd seriously appreciate it. It's a great way to let me know you've enjoyed everything, and it really encourages me to keep making great Pauper content. Now, without further ado, here are my top 5 commons from Ravnica Allegiance. Number 5, Summary Judgment. The first new common piquing interest from Ravnica Allegiance looks very similar to spells we've seen in the past. Gideon's Reproach could have found a place in Pauper, but its ceiling is a bit too low. Summary Judgment can still kill a Gurmag Angler. Take Vengeance, on the other hand, trades instant speed to be a Gurmfather Deathnell. Summary Judgment brings to the table something that neither of these spells has: choice. If we compare it to competing 2-drop removal in Journey to Nowhere or White's sideboard All-Star Celestial Flare, it looks a bit worse, but serves a different purpose. While Summary Judgment may not appear as a 4 of replacing these spells, it may serve as a more defensible choice than the 3rd or 4th copy of these other 2 spells. Number 4, Open the Gates. There was something really eloquent about Attune with Ether being banned in Standard not long ago. The ability to search for any color on turn 1 while providing the marginal advantage of energy proved to be too much for a format full of powerful rares. We may already have access to Lay of the Land and Gatecreeper Vine, but Open the Gates does so much more than that for Pauper. There comes a point in every brew where the mind strays into wondering whether it's time to finally splash that 3rd color and break through with an idea. You take a much greater risk having your Prophetic Prism getting countered or your Utopia Sprawled Land getting bounced. Open the Gates comes down before the fairies can counter it, and it gets you a reliable land to keep producing that splash color you're risking so much to run. Maybe this lets you play your Pulse of Marasa, Core Skyfisher, and Mulldrifter in the same deck. Maybe all that blue-green list needed was a Cortazar or 2 to break through. Regardless of which 3-color deck Open the Gates definitely enables, I'm thrilled to have the option to search for a dual land on turn 1, albeit not a great one. Number 3, Clear the Mind. The Pauper format has so few effects that allow you to refill your library. There was an excitement for Devious Cover-up because it allowed slow control decks to selectively fill their library while torturously milling out their opponents. Battlefield Scrounger serves a different purpose with the same effect, but unfortunately hasn't truly found its foothold in the format. I'm excited to see if the best control brewers can forge a path with our format's first Felden's Cane. Maybe we'll find it in a blue-red or blue-black piece of the puzzle shell, or maybe we're going to mill our whole library while accruing a resource advantage with Golgari Brown Shell, only to shuffle our graveyard right back in and do it again. It's hard to brew the elixir that will give this spell immortality, but the power level is so high and so unique that it may spawn an entirely new way to play Pauper. Number 2, Final Payment. Orzhov control decks have been consistently putting up results. Usually, while you're scrolling by a couple copies of Guardian of the Guild Pact in a 5/0 deck list, you'll expect Pestilence to follow soon after. Some Orzhov control decks are even successful without this excellent enchantment. Given the climate of the current format, a Pestilence deck would love more ways to deal with Gurmag Angler. Final Payment allows black-white players to pressure their opponent's mana on end step before deploying a Journey to Nowhere at sorcery speed. These Pestilence decks seem like a great home for one or 2 of these effects because they wouldn't have to go too far out of their way to spare a creature or an enchantment to Final Payment's additional cost. What's more is that these decks already play Lone Missionary and Aven Riftwatcher in their main deck. It's not unreasonable to think they wouldn't mind digging into their life total buffer for an unconditional removal spell. This isn't even the only place where Final Payment fits in though. I know people are already sleeving up their carrion feeders and harsh sustenances in anticipation for an aristocratic brew around. Number 1, Skewer Skewer the Critics. Skewer the Critics has to be one of the best commons we've seen out of a standard set since I started this channel. Burn is such a tight list that its few flex slots have been a revolving door of newly released creatures like Firebrand Archer and Gitu Lava Runner. Sometimes these hotly contested creatures don't appear because Flame Rift or Magma Jet have sparked Burn players' curiosity as possible replacements. All of the tinder in these flex slots have to try a little harder to do as much damage as the spectacular Skewer the Critics, so I think this is where the cuts will come from. If mono red burn isn't how you want to be throwing flaming chandelier spears, I think it will also slot into the fringe Thermo Delver list that put up surprising results last summer. The cost of Skewer the Critics is so low that this deck may even be able to remove a cantrip or two to turn up its clock with extra bolts. While my top picks did fall into place effortlessly, I still think there are some other commons from RNA that deserve a bit of attention. That's why I've picked out some brew-arounds and upgrades for existing lists and sideboards as my honorable mentions. First, we have Impassioned Orator and Ill-Gotten Inheritance. I've always got to give credit to cards that act as a new redundant effect that may actually serve as a good 5th or 13th copy. Impassioned Orator and Ill-Gotten Inheritance do exactly that. Impassioned Orator can arrive alongside the Soul Sisters and Suture Priest to buffer your life total as you commit a torrent of tokens to the battlefield with Battle Screech. I know one of our community members has been branching into other colors for their 13th Soul Sister, but now they may be able to stay home in white and skip the tap lands. Ill-Gotten Inheritance, on the other hand, is a bit tougher to compare to its cohorts. Curse of the Pierced Heart gives Burn some consistency when the top of its deck isn't behaving. Maybe Ill-Gotten Inheritance and Kumbaj Witches can combine for a similar grindy effect until Inheritance's activated ability ends the game a bit earlier than an extra lightning bolt could. Next, we have Fairy Duelist and Goblin Gathering. There was a time where it wasn't unrealistic to play Spontaneous Mutation as a foil to Tireless Tribe combo. This spell often arrived in sideboards that would rather have a fairy to bolster the effect of Spellstutter Sprite. Now, we have a duelist to fight next to Fairy Miscreant when Tribe inevitably tries to overflow the stack on a combo turn. Goblin Gathering, on the other hand, may be a spell that the faithless looting, Rites of Initiation slinging Goblin Storm deck can use to a greater effect than any other alternative. This is one of the sweetest Goblin token decks around, and I'd be thrilled to know that this synergistic and easy to cast new common will be the one to bring it out of the fringes. Finally, we have Persistent Petitioners. Getting 4 creatures on the battlefield is no short order, although we can help Persistent Petitioners by flooding the board with tokens before using a Shield of Velis Veil to turn everything into advisors and combo off in a single turn. Because Petitioners is a blue card means you could also pair it with its powerful allies in Gush, Preordain, and Ponder to make sure you combo off consistently. If you don't want to go the token route but still want to activate 8 advisors at once, why not try Dramatic Reversal to really speed up the milling? And there you have it, my top 5 commons from Ravnica Allegiance plus some honorable mentions. There are so many new cool cards released in every standard set that I know I must have missed one in RNA that you want to talk about. If so, make sure you post your top 5 down in the comments and let me know what you think of this new set. While you're down there, if you wouldn't mind liking the video and subscribing to the channel, I'd really appreciate it. It's a great way to let me know you've enjoyed everything, and it really encourages me to keep making great Pauper content. If you're wondering why the possibly Pauper playable deck tech didn't go live tonight, it's because I'm going to have an extra video coming out this week, and you guys will hear all about it when that happens. Finally, I just want to thank you guys for watching my top 5 Ravnica Allegiance video and for supporting me throughout the entire Guilds of Ravnica and Ultimate Masters season. I hope you're excited to play with some of these new cards, and hopefully I'll see you on Twitch on Tuesday and Wednesday nights.